and creating, you know, communities that where people have things in common.
Yeah, it's called working together. You know, it's. I mean, I lived in Miami, and I only knew 2 people on my whole block.
Oh, I know.
Just 5 seconds to the music.
Okay.
Get ready.
All right.
I gotta hear it. I don't have to fear it. And I rock a gypsy soul, just like way back in the day in the road. And together we will go into the mystic. Come on, girl.
Let's return to the European American Hour, brought to you by VOR. And now, here's your host, Stan Hess.
Okay, folks, we're back again for the second part of the program, and we've got Clayton Douglas on from Free America Online. And Clayton, just before we start talking, I wanted to ask you, when you were living in Texas, did you ever remember the Family Hand restaurant?
No.
That was in Houston.
No, I didn't.
That was
spend much time
during the
in
60s. And anyway, that was a place I used to hang out at. But and you know, it was really funny because the organization, the leftist organization that I was in at that time, the Young Socialist Alliance, they had a whole thing about they didn't want anybody smoking marijuana or doing drugs. So I had long hair and a beard and tie-dyed shirts and the whole thing, and I never understood why people didn't get close to me, and they say, we always thought you were a narc. I mean, life is too friggin' funny. But, you know, off the air, you know, I was, you know, in your essay, The Most Dangerous Men in America, Outlaws, really? You were talking about living in Miami and how you didn't even know your neighbors. That's pretty common around the country now.
It is. And, you know, I have a plan for Liberty Villages, and you can take one neighborhood in any city across America, make some simple changes, and suddenly become free, really free, you know?
Well, you know, why don't you tell people about your idea for these Liberty Villages?
I've been reporting on the news and what's happened since what happened at Waco. That made the difference for me. I swore I would never sit back and watch something like that happen again without trying to do something. So I've been trying to tell people and warn people. I watch the trends, I study history. Anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after 3 classes of people in order. They go after the farmers first, because they don't want you being able to feed yourself. They go after the intelligentsia next. That's anyone smart enough to know what they're doing, smart enough to question orders. And 3, they go after the law enforcement and the soldiers that are still loyal to the old regime. In this case, that would be those of us that know there was no expiration date on that oath we took to defend the Constitution. To come up with an answer, I tried to buy a town, and that was foiled by the governor of New Mexico. So I came up with the idea of Liberty Villages in the centerfold of my magazine, and that's developed a little bit. But basically, it's the concept of restoring the basis of every civilization throughout history, and that's the self-sufficient family farm. Now, with the technology we have in today, the way I advertised the Liberty Villages was all of the charm of the 19th century and all of the convenience of the 21st. And what I envisioned was farms and ranches where you raised your own animals, you fed them on non-GMO modified foods. You know, you raised organic vegetables, and you built and sold and used solar, wind, magnetics, composting, whatever it takes to be totally self-sufficient. We've got the technology, and I think that's one of the reasons that the attempt was made on my life, because I was advertising that in the centerfold of the Free American. The Free American was out there. I had Thunder Riders out there. I had all of the. I've got 4 films done now. I've got 4 books done, or 3 actually in print. And the war is still on me. I can't get agents. I can't get distributors. I can't get advertisers, because they will call up every advertiser and threaten them. Oh, if you're advertising with this racist, this anti-Semite Clay Douglas, we're going to tell all our friends not to shop at your place. This has been done over and over and over to me over the last 6 years, which is what that whole article that I sent you encompasses.
Well, you know, yeah, in this article, you were talking about what Governor Bill Richardson, is the governor of New Mexico at that time.
Yes.
You were trying to buy this small town called Playas.
Yes.
Which I guess doesn't that mean beaches in Spanish?
It's a lake. It's a lake.
Oh, it's a lake.
It's a dry lake bed. It was owned by Phelps Dodge. They put it up for sale. I bid. They only were asking $3 million. Governor Richardson, after I raised $250,000 I was on worldwide shortwave. After I raised $250,000, he stepped up and said, "Oh, we need to buy that," and so they bought it and overbid me by $3 million and took it and turned it into a anti-terrorist training camp.
And then you said they started blowing up the buildings.
Yeah, well, they were using it for war exercises. You know, invading the neighborhoods.
Unbelievable.
Gun search,
they're doing that for war exercises. But I think what they're really telling people is that if you disagree with our government, this is what we'll do with you. Isn't it amazing that they have a stand down procedure by the Border Patrol, no matter what they tell you on television? I have friends that live on the border, and they've been told when there was a firefight going on from the Mexican side that the Border Patrol guys in Tucson below Fort Huachuca were told not to engage these people that were shooting from the Mexican side of the border.
Well, of course not. Well, we can't have the Border Patrol injuring the CIA agents, you know. God, they're both on the payroll.
Oh my God, I love it. I mean, that is so real. There's a guy, I'm not going to mention his name because he doesn't like me.
Wait a minute, Stan, wait a minute, just a moment. I mean, this is the most superb bracket. We go down, the CIA and Mossad goes down to Colombia, they kill off, they send special forces in, they kill off the Medellin cartel, they set up the Cali cartel, they put it on the CIA planes coming back up to Mena, Arkansas, where Bill Clinton is in charge.
Barry Seal.
Boy.
Barry Seal, you said that you met at one time, right?
I met Barry Seal, yeah. He brought me some of the finest Oaxacan I've ever had. I'll always remember him.
Well, Terry Reid, of course, that was the guy who wrote that book about compromise, Clinton, Bush, and the CIA. He was at that conference where Randy Weaver was at when I was mentioning at the beginning of the show, and that book was referred to me by a very straight-laced Republican lawyer that lived in the Oakland Hills. And it was so mind-boggling at that time. That was in the 90s. It was hard for me to believe that my government would be involved in well, as we well knew, most of us thought that were quote unquote. I was conservative at that time, but the bringing guns down to the Contras, flying them down there, Barry Seal and Terry Reid together. and then Terry looks out in the jungle and here are these guys bringing cocaine into the plains, and then they're flying. He and Barry Seal are flying back to Mena, Arkansas, and he told Barry Seal, he said, "That's not what I was here for. You lied to me." And of course, Bill Clinton and
wasn't he sitting beside Barry Seal when Barry delivered that kilo of cocaine to the Bush brothers? George.
Yeah, well, that's what I remember. I don't remember the Bush brothers, but in that book, he talks about people implicating George W. and Jeb Bush involved in either, I don't know if it was using or distributing or whatever, and that Ollie North had lied, when he was investigated by Congress, and that he went under by a different name, and he was a cocaine operative involved with the Mena, Arkansas, Bill Clinton, George Bush operation.
Yeah, they flew it up to Red River too, and Taos and all that. You know, some of his Bill Clinton's associates.
But let me mention something to you, and I know this may not sound relevant to what we're talking about, but there's a guy I know that lives south of Fort Huachuca, right on the U.S.-Mexican border in Arizona, and he put up American flags not too long ago because he wanted the illegal aliens to see those flags. Well, the Border Patrol took the flags down, and they told him it was because they didn't want to upset the illegals.
They told the same thing to the sheriff over in Pinal County. They said, you know, they're coming up here. They put up signs saying, you know, Americans stay out, the illegals are here. You know, drug runners are here. We don't want you coming down. We don't want you interfering. My friend Casey Netticott. Now this wasn't in the article, but it's in the article that I sent you. It's linked to the last 6 years of what's been going on. Casey Netticott had bought a 70-acre ranch down in Douglas, Arizona. He called me and said, "Clay, I want to help you get Free America started again. The illegals are crossing our property every day. We've started them all here. We got a Jeep with a 50 caliber mounted on it, and we're stopping them. We're turning them over to the drugs over to the sheriffs, and we're turning the illegals over to the Border Patrol. Come down and talk to me." You know, Casey, I appreciate the offer, but it's expensive to do a magazine. "Clay, I got $1.5 million in one account. Money's not an issue. Buy me breakfast, Casey. I'll be down in the morning." Stan, they shot him coming out of Safeway with my breakfast. They didn't kill him, but Morris Dees from Southern Poverty Law went to Jim Hogg County, threatened Jim Hogg County, Texas, with a lawsuit if they didn't retry him on a charge of pistol whipping 2 illegal aliens. They retried him while he was in Texas, standing trial again, which he had been cut loose on a hung jury. He stood trial again. Morris Dees came to Douglas, Arizona, sued him on behalf of the 2 illegals, took his 70-acre ranch away and gave it to the illegals. And he did 2 years in a Texas penitentiary for talking to Clay.
Well, you know, I think I had him on my program back in 2005 or 6 talking about this, and it's so shocking, but I was down at the border in Campo, which is east of San Diego, and with some people who were had been, you know, putting shining lights on the illegals as they were coming through their land, and they had a hell of a time getting the Border Patrol to even help them at all.
If the CIA is controlling the drug flow into this country, they did it in Vietnam, they've done it in Thailand, they're doing it in Afghanistan right now. If they're bringing it in, these illegals are working for them. They're working for them.
You know, I have a friend that lives in California who told me that a good friend of his that was in the military said that General Westmoreland was up to his eyeballs in the whole drug thing during Vietnam. But he told me, he says, "Stan, if you ever mention my name," he says, "I will deny it." But you know, people are scared about all this stuff, and they should be scared. I mean, just like Tillman going to Afghanistan, and how that whole story has been hushed up, and the fact that he was working with Noam Chomsky of MIT, that he was, once he left the service, he was going to expose the fact that him giving up pro football for the Arizona Cardinals to fight for freedom, Afghani freedom. When he got there, he was defending the poppy fields.
That's right. That's right. I remember after we invaded, the talking head on CNN came on. There's a bumper crop of opium coming out of Afghanistan now.
Yeah, I wonder why, because we were protecting it.
Yeah, nasty old Taliban were destroying the opium poppy crops. I mean, what don't they learn from history? I mean, what was the whole Boxer Rebellion over, you know? They drugged China and set it up for communism. They've done the same.
Right.
They're doing the same thing in the United States. The pharmaceutical industry has up to a 7,000% markup for Luvox, for Xanax, for Valium, 4,000% for Valium. They make more money off the legal drugs than they do the illegal drugs. They control both of them, and Americans are being dumbed down. Your children are being fed fluoride every time they take a drink of water out of the tap. Man, you're lowering their IQ, and how many Americans? Somebody might want to point a finger at me because I'll tell you, I'll smoke a joint anytime with you, no problem. You know, but will I take a Valium? Hell no. Will I take anything other than an antibiotic if I get an infection? No, ever.
Well, you know, I want to get back to this Liberty Village idea because you know, you and I are the same age, and the thing that I think is most important is that, you know, we used to have a farming culture, and we used to have villages that were and small towns that were right in rural areas, and now we've got these corporate farmers. But you know, I ran across this guy. He's probably around 50 now, and he was telling me he lived in Boise, and that in Boise, the schools, public schools, used to let the kids out in the fall to harvest whatever crops there was. I don't know whether it was potatoes or whatever. And the young teenagers were predominantly white teenagers, but Mexican teenagers and American Indian, whatever, were making money so they could buy a car, they could go out on dates, buy some clothes, save up for college. And then some so-called do-gooder came in and said, this is a violation of child labor laws. And then what happened is these farmers had to go downtown into Boise and find drunks on the street to go and try to harvest these crops. So of course, you know, I did that one time in Oakland. I wasn't a drunk, but I needed the money, and I went out on a farm labor crew, and we had drunks that were on the bus. Who some of them slept on the bus instead of working, and others, they didn't work very much because they were hungover from the night before. Well, these farmers decided, well, if we can't use these young people, then we'll, you know, find out what these ranchers or farmers down in the Southwest are doing. So that's when you started having the illegal alien problem.
This is all contrived. It's Hegelian dialectic. You create the problem. You create the shortages. You know. I started, my first job was being a busboy in a restaurant. You know, my kids couldn't get a job in a restaurant. They didn't speak Spanish.
Well, I mean, that's where the country's gone. Of course, if we went down into Mexico and said, I want all of you to speak English, and we need Spanish as a second language courses, and you're going to have to institute that because, you know, we gringos, we demand our rights. I mean, you know, they'd run us out of town on a rail in a heartbeat.
No, if you get caught in Mexico without a visa, guess what? You go to prison. You go to jail. It ain't. It's an invasion. It's an invasion. This is what our government is supposed to be doing for us. This is what one of the legitimate things the government can do for us is defend our borders. It's being done on purpose, Stan. They want to destabilize this country. They want to. They've set us up for it. Clinton set us up for it. Bush furthered that agenda along. They've got the detention centers here, you know, and they've had them here. I mean, they've been planned since Rex '84. So it ain't nothing new is under the sun here. But I think something is happening. There is, you know, the potential of great earthquakes here that could give us a new inland sea up along the Mississippi, along the New Madrid Fault. And in my film, True Face of FEMA, which, by the way, all my films and my books are available on freeamerican.com. All you got to do is call my number, 505-908-9498, and you can order any of my books. I've got fiction books that actually take you into the future. When I wrote it, I told you about these camps, detention centers, and Halliburton hadn't even been paid to build them at that time. So, you know, I'm staying a little bit ahead of the curve here. Even
you know, we're both way ahead of the curve. Yeah, but you know, I was talking to a friend of mine about some of the stuff that I talk about on the radio, on the internet broadcasts, and talk with people on the phone about who are politically active. And this friend of mine, you know, who was a big George Bush supporter, and you know, now he's railing against Obama, of course. He said, you know, he says, Stan, these Republicans, because he considers himself a Republican, he says they don't stand up to anybody. He said they are weak, and they're caving in as soon as they get elected. And you know, this is just a regular kind of guy the same age as me, 66, and who's having trouble, you know, making ends meet, just like a lot of people are nowadays. But you know, when the average person starts saying this political system with these two parties, which I refer to as Zionists to the left, Zionists to the right, stand up, sit down, fight, fight, fight. That's all it is.
It's divide and conquer. They put everybody in groups. You know, Republicans versus Democrats. Oh, I'm a conservative. Oh, you're a liberal. You know, come on, folks.
Yeah.
We're Americans. We are Americans. We could do this together if we were working together. Liberty villages. It doesn't matter what color you are. If you want to live in a white Liberty village, start it. Get 10 of your friends, and start it, and see if you can be more productive than the brown people or the yellow people or the black people down the road a bit.
Let me throw in something, Clayton. Let me throw in something which I think is very important in terms of divide and conquer. You know, Reverend Manning there in Harlem, who's spoken out against Obama, referring to him as the Mac Daddy.
Been on my show twice. Yes, sir.
And yeah, and he's been on your show. But what I wanted to tell you is, I have a friend who's been involved in the immigration fight for a long time, and he knows a minister in the Midwest who is for immigration control. He used to be a black Muslim, and now he's a Christian minister. But he said, he told my friend, he says, you know, he says, black people do not like all this immigration. But he says, they hate white people so much they would rather see white people scream about immigration, even if it affects them, because they like to see white people hurting through immigration. Now, that's how they play one group off against another.
Right. That's right. And you'll get the white Christian. I wrote a book in Mystery Babylon. It's a story about Christian identity. Now, I don't have any problem believing that 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago, my ancestors crossed the Caucasus Mountains, became called Caucasians. I don't have any problem believing they were part of the Israelites. And I got no problem believing that. But when you get these people in these Christian identity rooms and chat rooms, and they're talking about kill the blacks, kill the Mexicans, kill the Jews, then I said, wait a minute, you're becoming as the way you're talking is just as evil as the finger you're pointing at the Zionists. You better hope the Zionists.
And that is the problem, is that things have been so polarized in this country by the media, and the fact that there's not a lot of jobs available now, and we're still letting almost 1 million illegals come in from all over the world, whether it's overstaying their visa in the airports, coming across the Canadian border, or of course across the Texas, Mexico, or Arizona, California border. And then you got 1 million refugees come in, so-called refugees, and we don't have enough work for the people already here. It just plants the seeds for an authoritarian government to come in and say, okay, we created this mess, like you said earlier, Clayton, but now we're going to come in and we're going to clamp down on civil liberties because there's just too much hate.
Yeah, see, somebody just, and the sheriff here in Tucson tried to stir that up. Oh, yeah, it's a talk show host. It's a talk show host. No, it's not. You know, all we're doing is giving you the information, real information, which the mainstream ain't. What they're giving you is programming, folks.
Well, you know, Abe Foxman came out before Loeffner was found out that he was Jewish. At first, it was all about anti-Semitism and these right-wing hosts and hate. And then when he found out that it was a Jewish guy, because White News Now and Jamie Kelso put it out there, then all of a sudden he started calling extreme political violence. So anyway, Blake, we got to go, but I want to thank you for being on the program. And folks, if you want to get in touch with Blake, you go to freeamerican.com.
That's freeamerican, CAN.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Clayton.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for being on the program. It was a good program. Thank you, sir.